When morality collides with the truth. What's up, my brothers from another mother? Today's video. I get challenged a lot by white knights, blue-pilled guys, a lot of women even, around the morality of things that conflict with the conversations that I have about the truth of the world that we live in. A lot of it usually comes from places around, well, what about marriage, Rich, and what about monogamy, and, you know, blah, 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 and all that sort of stuff. And the truth of the matter is while the morality that you idealize is sweet, it's cute, it's part of the narrative that we've all been sold as children, as adults, by media, society, religion, so on and so forth. You know, let's take marriage as an example. Let's take marriage and monogamy as a solid example, because we can talk about that quite deeply. You know, we've been told you find the one, make an honest girl out of her, wife her up, say your vows, I do, till death do us part, and richer and poor, and sickness and health, you know, blah, blah, blah. But the reality of the matter is, you know, 8 out of 10 divorces are initiated by women, and women aren't leaving successful winners. They're leaving to find a better scenario. They're leaving to marry up. Quite often they're monkey branching over to another guy they've already found, and they're ending the marriage because of that. In other scenarios, it's just they get bored. You know, we know that women's desire tanks a lot faster in a long-term relationship than men's do. But, you know, it's funny because I often get challenged by women, you know, why don't you talk more about marriage? Why don't you talk about the morality of it? What about the morality of marriage, Rich? What about the morality of monogamy? We're not monogamous. You know, we're not a exclusive species. If we were, we would be with the very person that we lost our virginity to when we lost it, you know, as a youngling. But we don't. We move from person to person. Sometimes those lines blur. Sometimes there's overlap. Sometimes it's simultaneous. And women are no better than men. In fact, a lot of research indicates that they're far worse than men when it comes to monogamy and exclusivity. So I find it interesting when women, you know, bang on this drum about marriage and monogamy. But the truth of the matter is, I mean, women have a really hard time with monogamy in today's world for a whole bunch of reasons. If you haven't read Sex at Dawn by Chris Ryan, check it out. It goes really deep into that. Let's talk about Stephanie Kuntz and a book she wrote called Marriage: A History. The whole point of marriage, you know, for the morality people out there, the whole point of marriage is not love. It's never been about love. The point of marriage, historically speaking, and it's a well-researched book. You know, it's written by this, I mean, she obviously leans feminist, you know, the way the writing comes off, but it's well-researched. You know, she's using journals, historical records, court records, and all this to basically itemize the history of marriage. The history of marriage is not, you know, for the morality of love, because you love somebody and you want to be with them till death do you part, blah, blah, blah. The history of marriage is really about the acquisition of in-laws and survival. You know, a few hundred years, I mean, even as recent as a few hundred years ago, and it's been this way for thousands of years, tens of thousands of years probably, you know, if you go back even further, you know, men were at the head of the household. You know, ideally the family was at the head of the household, and it would take care of things like law enforcement, schooling, medical care, the elderly, you know, all kinds of stuff. All that's handled by the state now. So men, like, the authority that men had has been removed, and it's been given to the state and women, generally speaking, because the way toxic feminism has kind of eroded, you know, masculinity and men's place in the world today. So there is no morality of love in marriage anymore. Love is a newly introduced thing. You know, people married for love, according to Stephanie Kuntz's research, only in the last 150 years or so. So it's a fairly new phenomenon. It was mostly about survival and the acquisition of in-laws. You know, single motherhood, for example, like 1,000 years ago, would be a death sentence for a woman. You know, like, no man would want her. If anybody was going to take her, she either had to go back to her family or she'd have to make a living working in a brothel. But in today's world, the state takes care of that. Men aren't needed. You know, it's just a grim reality of the world that we live in, is we're not nearly as useful and highly regarded as what we used to be. Women, say it all the time publicly on social media, in the news. I don't need a man. You see them marching with their pink pussy hats and so on and so forth. And that's just the movement that we live in today. So when people lecture me, or they lecture you, for example, and they start telling you about, well, what about marriage and what about monogamy and all that sort of stuff, and stop being an F-boy or an F-girl. Men aren't as promiscuous as women. I'll put a card up on the top right. I came across this video. I'll have to dig it up. But this woman that treats both men and women in her clinic noticed that it was mostly women that do most of the cheating, by a wide margin, as a matter of fact. So when it comes to the notion of declaring monogamy or declaring exclusivity, it's a very hard thing for these blue-pilled, white knighty, even women to understand, because if it conflicts with their narrative, then they're going to be vehemently opposed to the notion of hearing the truth. Your morality, well, let's put it this way. Hypergamy doesn't care about your morality. Hypergamy does not give a crap about your morality, because when a couple goes to the church, they perform the religious ceremony, I do's, till death do us part, and sickness and health, and richer and poorer. Well, if something happens to that man and he's deemed incompetent by his spouse, unable to provide, maybe quits his job 3 or 4 times over the course of 12, 14 months, and she sees no use for him because she's got a job, or even if she doesn't have a job covering the bills sufficiently, she knows she can extract financial resources either from the state or from him. She doesn't need that guy. She's going to bounce. So don't lecture me about monogamy and, women, being the better sex or the more idealistic one of the two. There is no one better than the other. Human beings are promiscuous to a huge degree, okay? The next time your girlfriend tries to lecture you about F-boys and F-girls and how the world is falling apart and the morality of things going completely sideways, and I wish, we could just be honest with each other and that sort of stuff. Well, tell that to the 80% of women that are leaving their husbands in marriages. Why are they doing that? Why are they leaving men that they vowed to stay with till death do them part? Explain that to me. And when you're going lecturing guys about you being, the monogamous type or whatever, it's very hard for women to do it for this reason. So, I'm going to try to wrap this up so I don't bang on about this one too long. There's a lot of research that indicates that the younger a woman is and the more sexual partners that she has in her lifetime, the more unlikely it is for her to be able to pair bond to anybody for any length of time. So a woman that's 25, for example, when she lost her virginity and maybe slept with 2 guys, is far more likely to be able to pair bond and be in a monogamous relationship or a marriage over a long period of time versus the other one that lost her virginity at 13 and lost count after 100 or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So the morality of, your ideals and the love moralities and the marriage moralities and the monogamy moralities that people always like to challenge me on when I talk about the cold hard truths of the sexual marketplace, when I drop these truth bombs, you're going to have to suck it up, buttercup, because the truth of the matter is that's not what human beings are. Human beings are what they are. The sexual marketplace is what it is. And there's some very, very uncomfortable truths about the way that we behave as human beings. And that's what I talk about on this channel. I mean, I just don't talk about that. I always talk about money and business and a few other things as well. But this seems to dominate the conversation for some reason, because there's always these ideas that get challenged by people. So I'll put it to you this way. The next time your chick tries to challenge you about F-boys and F-girls and monogamy and all that sort of stuff, and she's banging on about how she loves you so much, always remember, 1, add right now when they make that statement. When a woman expresses a feeling to you, fellas, and she's like, but I love you so much and I just want to be with you forever and blah, 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 and all that stuff, always think in your head, okay, right now. That's what she's feeling right now, because that may change later on down the road if circumstances for you don't get better, they stagnate, or maybe go down, for example. The other thing that you could do, which is a very interesting test, is the next time she comes at you with that stuff, just look at her and say, all right, we're going to be together forever. Is that how confident you are? Great. Get my name tattooed on your body somewhere. Let's see what she does. Tell her to put her money where her mouth is and see what she does. I guarantee it's unlikely to happen. Anyway, leave a comment below, smash the thumbs up video, let somebody see this that might need to check it out, share it out there on social media, let people know what's going on with the real world. There's also the link for the men's community on the top right. Check that out. Lots of premium content there and exclusive stuff that doesn't end up on the channel. You also get to network and connect with a whole bunch of like-minded guys. We've got hundreds of dudes in there right now working on becoming the best versions of themselves and chasing excellence. See you guys in the next video. Peace.